everyone, and welcome to the Before the Snap podcast. I am James Christopher. I'm joined, as always, by my two co-hosts, Chase Oliver and Lou Testamark. What's going on, Chase?
It's going great, man. NFL draft coming up in 2 weeks. Pretty damn excited, if you ask me.
Yeah, all the way in California, Chase is, but all the way in D.C., Lou, what's going on over there?
Hey, it's draft time like Chase said, man. This is what you as a fan get excited about because at this time, everyone has a shot.
And that is correct, and me residing in Nashville, Tennessee. So we're spread out all over the U.S. so we can go about this the right way. And let's go about this way first. Risers, fallers, that's the biggest thing in the draft. Pro Football Talk actually came out with a mock draft yesterday, and I thought it was awful, but he has guys rising and falling, Mike Florio, so I know everybody has an opinion on this. Risers, fallers, Lou, who's your risers and who are your fallers?
Well, for me, I'm going to start with the bad news, and my faller right now has to be DeMontre Moore. I mean, this was a guy that we were talking about potentially being the number one overall pick in this draft starting out this process. I mean, this guy was highly touted, and after the combine, I mean, his stock has progressively fallen. And when I say fallen, it's like it's attached to a boulder. This thing is plummeting faster than the speed of light. And so you can argue that this guy might not even be drafted in the first round now. I think someone's going to take a chance on him. I'm about to release my mock here today, actually, and I have him going in the first round, but barely. But to me, that combine, him running a slow 40, him only being able to bench press 225 12 times is not acceptable for a guy that you're looking to play on the defensive line or out wide at linebacker. You can't have it. He has to get stronger. And so DeMontre Moore for me is absolutely a faller in my eyes. If you want to talk about a guy that is rising rapidly up draft boards, look no further than Lane Johnson out of Oklahoma. This guy is shooting up draft boards as we speak. Teams are really enamored with his versatility and his athleticism. This is the tackle out of Oklahoma. And right now, he's probably sitting on people's draft board as the third-rated tackle in this draft. But you've got some right now that like Lane Johnson as the top-rated tackle in this draft, the second-rated tackle in this draft. So he's all over the place in terms of 1, 2, or 3. But he's not leaving the top 3. He's had a great combine, and the momentum has grown since his combine. Very athletic. Again, he's played both right tackle and left tackle, so the versatility is there, and he's played both of them really well. You put the tape on, and this guy is very dominant. He's nasty, what you look for in a tackle. Lane Johnson has the versatility to fit in a power blocking scheme, or you can put him into a zone blocking scheme. He's athletic enough to get outside and go to the second level and get guys. He's also a mauler as well. I love Lane Johnson. I love everything about his game. And right now, to me, Lane Johnson is absolutely a riser in this draft.
Yeah, I would agree with Lane Johnson. I mean, this kid was supposed to be projected to come out of the third round. Wasn't really projected to be too hot. Had a great combine. Had a great, off season for him. And now he's projected to be either a top 11 pick in this NFL draft. There's teams that are looking at him at left tackle position. The Arizona Cardinals, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the San Diego Chargers could very well take a Lane Johnson-type left tackle because both those teams need tackles. Now, there's also Luke Joeckel and Eric Fisher here, but what if these guys like Lane Johnson better as a player? Luke Joeckel, great tackle. He's probably going to be taking number 1, so you leave with Eric Fisher, but you got to say, do you want to go with the guy who's part of the small school and had small school success, or do you want to go with the guy who has been part of a system like in Oklahoma and has success around there? So, in all honesty here, Lane Johnson has done a really good job riding his draft stock, and in all honesty, his draft stock risen just because the tackles of this class, there's only 3 of them, and a lot of teams are looking for left tackles to make their team better. Another guy, to me, who has risen above the ranks is Sylvester Williams out of North Carolina. He's been a guy that
Definitely.
I thought that was just a third-round pick. But, with teams moving to this new 3-4 type system and, a lot of teams' defensive tackles are getting a lot more older, he's definitely a guy a lot of teams are looking out there. Sheldon Richardson, Sharif Floyd, and Star Latulippe, top 3 defensive tackles. But when it comes down to Sylvester Williams, he's obviously number 4. Now, when it comes down to fallers, there's a lot of people that have fell from this draft. Like Lou said, DeMontre Moore. It's just really character issues. The guy has character. And then Bjorn Werner, bad combine. But the thing is, these guys can have bad combines, but teams like the Steelers and the Giants and the Ravens are going to get these guys, and they're going to pan out to be successful in the NFL. And in all honesty, I feel sometimes, we look at numbers too much in the combines, and we don't really see that these guys are actually successful athletes. They are proven that they can get it done on the field. We look into their numbers so much. So when I named those 3 guys, these 3 guys back in before scouting combines in middle of December of the college football season, these were 1, 2, and 3 arguably, and now they're spread down the range of top 25, maybe even top 50 picks in this NFL draft. Those guys have fallen tremendously. And another guy that I found interesting that has fallen really, really low is Cordell Patterson. I think a lot of people are starting to realize that Cordell is just a number 2 wide receiver, and that Cordell is not a number 1 option. Instead, I think they realized that Justin Hunter, his teammate out of Tennessee, yes, bad year for him. Yes, injuries happened to him. But I think they're starting to realize Justin Hunter is better than Cordell Patterson. Justin Hunter is a guy that I see as my number 1 wide receiver, and Cordell Patterson, not so much. I mean, Cordell, very good talent, but he's not a guy I would consider my number 1 option. So, in all honesty, it's interesting to see these guys, rise and fall. Another riser, just for the sake of it, because everyone loves talking about him, is Tavon Austin. Tavon Austin is pretty much successful in becoming the top 13 pick, mainly because of success of guys like Percy Harvin and Randall Cobb recently in the NFL. So, in all honesty here, these guys are rising and falling for reasons. And I feel Tavon Austin's rising in a good way. I feel Lane Johnson's rising in a bad way. But other than that, the guys who are falling are all credible talents. They just have some off-the-field issues that they got to take care of.
And you know what, Chase, you made some really valid points there. And I think sometimes we do put too much emphasis on the numbers. And sometimes you just got to look at the tape. You just got to look at what guys were able to do on the football field. And numbers don't lie. Your eyes don't lie. And what you've seen on tape, these guys can play football. Now, in some instances, yes, you need to be able to lift in the weight room. Running, and I don't get caught up in numbers for guys, because how often do you need a defensive end to run 40 yards down the field? I'm looking for explosion. I'm looking for a guy that can get off the ball. As soon as that ball is snapped, can he get from point A to point B and from 0 to 60 like that? That's what you're looking for from guys. I don't really put too much into the stock of a 40 time. Like a guy like Jarvis Jones running a 4.9 40. That doesn't turn me off from Jarvis Jones. More so, DeMontre Moore not lifting 2 1/4 but 12 times. That scares me, because in the league, you have to be physical. You have to be able to get your hands on offensive tackles and shed them. You got to be able to get to the ball carrier. You got to be able to get to the quarterback. And being strong is a part of that. And so, yes, sometimes we put too much emphasis on the numbers, but in certain instances, it's warranted. But, James, how do you feel? Who are some of your risers and your fallers?
Faller for me, this guy hasn't been talked about much. In the beginning of the year and throughout the year, he was being talked about, and that's Jonathan Hankins. But I feel that he is falling. Even a mock draft I saw today had him in the 3rd round. Now, I do think a team is probably going to take him in the 2nd round, but you look at him out of Ohio State, teams are just not really liking this guy. He is 320 pounds, and that is a big force in the middle, but sometimes that production really lacks in that Ohio State system, and that really is alarming. Also, Eddie Lacy, he wasn't able to go at the combine. We're going to see how he does at his pro day, at these workouts. But now they're starting to be concerned with that. I had him mocked going to the St. Louis Rams in the first round. I may have to go back on that because it seems that more and more teams are just saying, we don't really need this guy. This guy isn't really impressing us too much right now. And you said it, Lou, Demontre Moore, this guy has fallen, it's just ridiculous. It is just maddening to me how far Demontre Moore has fallen. This guy was a top 5 prospect. And now he's down to, barely round 1. I do think he will ultimately go round 1. I'll be shocked if the Atlanta Falcons do not take him since they need a pass rusher if he lasts that long. But I definitely think he's going to go first round. But I'm not loving this guy anymore. But you look at risers, I look at Tank Carradine. This guy, he suffered that ACL injury, and that's what really hindered his season. But I love this guy. I think without this injury, Florida State would have been even greater defensively. They would have been so scary with that lethal pass rush. I would have been legitimately really scared to my boots of Florida State if Tank Carradine was able to play. But obviously he wasn't. Other risers I look at, Jesse Williams out of Alabama, big defensive tackle. He's another 320-pound guy, and they're starting to look at him saying, wow, Nick Saban was really able to use this guy in this Alabama defense. He was really able to clog up that running game successfully. And Jonathan Cooper, I think that now teams are starting to value him over Chance Warmack now, and that's something I didn't think they were going to do. And it's mainly because of how Jonathan Cooper performed at the Combine, which is overrated to me. But they like how athletic this guy is compared to Chance Warmack. We all know Chance Warmack is a mauler. But Jonathan Cooper possesses the athleticism that is going to allow him to pull second and third level more effectively, and teams are really interested in getting a guard that can do that.
The thing about Cooper is that when you look at Cooper, he helped have his running back, Giovanni Bernard, have a very successful season at North Carolina. He was the star of the North Carolina offensive line, and not to mention he's a guy that can play both guard and center. A lot of teams are going to be valuing that over Chance Warmack, who Warmack may have the question, was he just a product of the Alabama system? Was he just a product because he had Barrett Jones and DJ Fluker around him? Was that the only reason why Chance Warmack was really good? I honestly think Chance Warmack is really good. I think he's a very, very good offensive lineman. Started 4 years for Alabama. Very, very tough, competitive guy. But that will be interesting to see because there's not a lot of guys on the offensive line that are as big as Chance Warmack. You look at Chance Warmack, he's a huge, huge guy. And Jonathan Cooper, he can play the center position. There's some more value with Jonathan Cooper that I feel most teams are looking at than a Chance Warmack, which is rightfully so.
And one more nugget before we move on to the next topic. You talked about this, James, briefly with Eddie Lacy. It's amazing that, because I felt like Jeff Fisher, that's his type of guy. That's where he would like to take a back. We've seen him do it over the years. He did it with Chris Johnson. He did it with Eddie George. That's with that second pick in the first round, that's the type of position where Jeff Fisher would love to take a back. But I don't think there's a back in this draft that wants a first-round selection, and that is news because since 1963, every year in the draft, there's been a running back selected in the first round. I think that trend is going to be bucked in this draft because I cannot see any running back being selected in the first round this year.
If anything, I would guarantee we would see at least 2 or 3 quarterbacks drafted more than running backs in the first round. Like right now, we're all drafting these guys to pick defensive ends and wide receivers, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a E.J. Manuel or a Mike Glennon or a Ryan Nassib slip in or Matt Barkley slip in the first round.
Definitely. I mean, we've seen how this goes in the past. Guys start coming off the board, teams start overreacting and they start panicking, and players are overdrafted. We've seen it. We saw it with Christian Ponder and that whole draft class with Jake Locker and Blaine Gabbert. And so we've seen precedents for this. Once teams start reaching in and snagging their guy, teams start panicking and guys go a lot higher than we once assumed. So It's going to be interesting. That's why you got to love the draft, because you expect the unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And two other quarterbacks to watch, to me, is Zach Dysert and Tyler Bray. I think they could slip into the second round, and maybe, just if a team really thinks that they really need this guy, they could trade into the first round, back into the first round, and take one of these guys. Because NFL teams believe that if their guy is there, they need to get him because he's the future, even though it really doesn't pan out all of the time.
Dysert especially, because he is too comparable to Ben Roethlisberger.
And another guy, just real quick, Tyler Wilson. I'm not really loving this guy. I know there's a lot of support for this guy. Just real quick, what are you guys' thoughts on Tyler Wilson, Arkansas?
Just go watch Alabama week 2, and Tyler Wilson, I believe week 2, week 3, when Arkansas faced Alabama. Alabama kicked their ass. And then afterwards, the press conference Tyler Wilson had, that literally hurt his draft stock because he tried to act like he was some higher power in Arkansas. He literally acted like he was like the dean or the athletic director. It was just such a classless interview. I understand what he was trying to say. I'm not saying Tyler Wilson's a classless player. I don't believe he is. But the thing was, that interview right there hurt him so bad because he is a talented kid. I think he's very talented. Arkansas always has talented quarterbacks that come out. Won't be starters, but will back up for many years until they can start. Watch out for Ryan Mallett in New England. But to me, Tyler Wilson hurt his draft stock a lot, but he is a talented type of player.
And you just mentioned Ryan Mallett. I think that's a perfect segue, Chase, because I don't think this guy has the arm talent that you look for out of an elite prospect in the National Football League. You talked about Bray just a few seconds ago, Chase, or James, excuse me, and he has arm talent. He can wing it, but I don't know if the mental side and aspect of the game for Bray is what it needs to be to take that next step in the league. He'll need some coaching before he can get on the field. Whereas Wilson, I think the mental approach is there. Sometimes he has some lapses in concentration, makes some mistakes, bad judgment, but I think he can throw the football. He's a good thrower of the football. I just don't think the arm talent is what you want. And I agree with Mike Mayock. In this draft, if you're going to make a mistake, because no one really is in love with any of these quarterbacks. If you're going to make a mistake with a quarterback, go athletic, go big arm talent, and if you mess up that way, at least you can say, hey, I saw some promise in this guy. He can throw the football. He can move around in the pocket. He can make things happen. It just didn't work out. So you got to be careful. With Tyler Wilson, I like a lot of the intangibles. I'm not sure that I'm in love with the arm talent, though.
All right, yeah. All right, well, now I want to get into a report by Pro Football Weekly on Geno Smith.
Oh, man. Yes, we need to.
This article, it was written by Nolan Noraki. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Excuse me.
No, that's exactly what his name is. And yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Make sure to get that right. But, I mean, and I want to bring up the last sentence in this Geno Smith summer because, I mean, this is the most important sentence of it all, really. A cross between Akeem Smith and Aaron Brooks, Smith is a gimmick, overhyped product of the system lacking the football savvy, work habits, and focus to cement a starting job and could drain energy from a quarterback room. I mean, wow. Will be overdrafted and struggle to produce against NFL defense complexities. That is really, I mean, wow. I mean, that is an attack. I mean, I've never heard an attack that sophisticated, but it is an attack nonetheless. Chase, you want to go first on this one?
Yes, please.
Because, see, the thing is about Geno Smith, a lot of people are kind of just seeing, like, okay, he came from a gimmicky offense. West Virginia is a gimmicky offense. It was just smoke and mirrors, West Virginia. They would play teams with bad defenses. They would just be like, oh, you know, this team has a terrible defense. West Virginia looks good. They scored 70 points, and then they faced Texas Tech, who had a number 30 ranked defense in the nation. I could be wrong when they faced them, and they lost. And Geno Smith could not handle that pressure. But then again, let's rewind the hands of time, and let's go back to RG3. RG3 sucked against good defenses and a gimmicky-type Baylor offense. RG3 did not turn out so well in some big games for Baylor. And Geno Smith did not turn out so well in big games for West Virginia. Now, RG3 did have that great game against Oklahoma. We cannot deny that. But what I will say here is I don't think Geno Smith is that bad of a person. I don't think Geno Smith is that bad of a quarterback where he can't land a starting job. Okay, let's listen here. If I can see a bearded loser like Ryan Fitzpatrick out of Harvard start a football game, if I can see a no-arm, talented-less Tim Tebow start 8 NFL games, if I can see Jason Campbell start almost a 16-game season, if I can see Rex Grossman lead a team to a Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure Geno Smith can start in the NFL. Okay? I'm pretty sure he can. There's a lot. Ben Roethlisberger is a perfect example. Not a lot of high hopes for him. You know, Steelers drafted him, and what happened to the Steelers? They end up going to a Super Bowl. They win the Super Bowl with Ben Roethlisberger. You know, second year. Ben Roethlisberger has 2 Super Bowl rings. You know what? Anything can happen in the NFL, and I'm not the hugest Geno Smith fan. I think he's a very, very good talent. But for him to say that this guy's going to put the quarterback room to sleep, that this guy is not going to pan out well, that's ridiculous to me, because from the only complaint I see with Geno Smith that I agree with is that his eye speed is slow. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, if you want to complain about a guy's eyes not being fast, that makes sense to me. But to say that this guy can't start in the NFL, no, that is ridiculous to me. It's a ridiculous statement. Mike Mayock was trying to defend this man and say, oh, you know, I've known him for many years. He's just very harsh. He takes this sport seriously. Yeah, maybe he takes this sport way too seriously, where he looks into such little details about Geno Smith. This guy is going to be a rookie quarterback. Do you expect this guy, as a rookie quarterback, to be as good as RG3 and Andrew Luck, who were finished products? These guys were finished products coming out of their college system. Geno Smith, yes, a finished product, but not really as big as RG3 and Andrew Luck. The thing is, to me, Geno Smith will be overdrafted. If Buffalo takes him at number 8, it's an overdraft. No matter what you say, it's still overdrafting this guy. He's a second-round talent at best. But to say that this kid cannot start in the NFL is ridiculous and bullshit to me.
Look, I kind of piggyback and echo the sentiment that Chase just had. My biggest gripe with this whole situation, and look, Nolan Milwaukee is probably taking what he said from a source that he has that's close to the situation, and so he feels very comfortable saying what he said, and that's why he's not backing off of what he said. And look, my whole problem with this whole situation is you're attacking the guy's character. Look, if you want to attack the guy on the field, by all means, knock yourself out. That's what we do. We criticize, we watch film, we break down, we analyze, and we report what we see. And if what you've seen is a guy that you can't trust as a quarterback and a leader of a franchise, fine. If you think he goes through his progressions too slow, he takes too many sacks, he's too reluctant to run, fine. I get all of that. Don't get any arguments from me. But to go and attack the man's character, say that he's lazy, say that he doesn't have work ethic, say that he's going to drain the energy out of a quarterback room, say that he's going to be Achilles Smith and some other quarterback that was horrendous in the league is asinine. I mean, don't attack the man's character. That's my biggest problem is you don't know the man personally for you to go and say those things. You didn't work with him closely. Now, you may have talked to someone that did, but again, you haven't given the man an opportunity to show what he can do in the league. And yes, I've heard reports that he's not a big worker in the gym. But what quarterback is? I mean, not every quarterback is going to come out looking like Brady Quinn. So, you know what? This thing just really rubbed me the wrong way because, again, you're attacking someone's character. And there's not many things you can say about people. And in life, you can always say, look, I got my name. And if there's nothing else that I have my name. Please don't rub that in the dirt. And I feel like if you want to take my skills as a player and rub them in the dirt, by all means, knock yourself out. But don't rub my name, my personal name, in the dirt. And I felt like he was really attacking Geno Smith, the person, instead of Geno Smith, the football player. And I have a problem with that.
I mean, this guy mainly bashes on his off-the-field issues. I mean, and I'm not going to act like I know that. Okay, I'm not going to act like I know Geno Smith. I know he works hard. The coach says he does, and I mean, obviously the coach is going to defend his quarterback. But this is the first time I'm hearing of this, and that alarms me, because if this really was a problem, I'm pretty sure that we would have heard more of this. But for me, this is the first time I'm hearing of, I mean, Geno Smith just not trying in the quarterback room, and then that's basically what he's saying, that he lacks focus. And I really don't see that with Smith. I mean, we all know the bowl game did not look very pretty, but then again, that entire team did not look very good. If there's one problem with Smith, I just think maybe because he can't perform under the weather, because there was hazardous weather, really. I mean, going on during that game, and I can't remember how many inches of snow it was, but I can understand why he would have trouble during that. And there hasn't been any snow games this past year or anything. And as long as he doesn't go, to New England, he should be fine, and he won't go to New England.
He's going to play in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah, he could go to Buffalo, actually, yes. But ultimately, I mean, I'm not putting much stock into this report. I mean, this is the same guy that bashed Cam Newton, and I'm not saying that Cam Newton has been great, but I don't remember exactly the exact words that were used in that article. But I know he made it seem as if Cam Newton was just going to be a flat-out bust, and to me, he's been pretty good. Now, he can be a lot better. He can lead, the Panthers to a lot more success. But for now, I'm pretty pleased with Cam Newton, and I'm sure that if Geno Smith can go to a team in the right system, he can succeed and he can play well.
I agree.
I 100% agree about that. I just don't feel like Geno Smith is not worthy of a starting quarterback. We've seen worse.
Yes, we have seen worse, and worse is over there in Cleveland every year. All right, well, overall, we want to get into... Let's get into something that I really am really in awe of. The offensive line in this draft is really amazing to me. This is the best offensive line talent I've seen in a while. Okay? I mean, there could be a potential of 4 offensive tackles taken in the first round. You have Luke Joeckel, you have Lane Johnson, you have DJ Fluker, you have Eric Fisher, and I mean, just wow. Any thoughts on the offensive line?
The offensive line class from this year, I just think is more over-touted than what it is. It's just because a lot of teams have offensive line problems, so they have to reach for these boys. In all honesty,
I don't know if it's more that they're over-touted as it is. This draft just isn't overstocked with talent. Like, normally we're talking about a quarterback at one, And so the fact that we're talking about an offensive lineman at one, and we're talking about the offensive line potentially taking over the top 10, Yeah. I'll give you a nugget. That is just mind-boggling. There's only been one guard selected in the top 10 in the last 25 years in the draft. It happened in 1997, and it was Chris Naoden. And so guards don't get drafted in the top 10. We can see 2 guards come off the board in the top 10 in this draft. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. I mean, that just goes to show you how big the offensive line has been in this draft class. For sure, we're going to see 3 tackles come off the board in the top 10. You could see 2 guards come off the board in the top 10. We're talking about 5 offensive linemen potentially in the top 10. That's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, it's just amazing, yeah.
It is amazing. It's just that, like Lou said, this draft is not really super duper talented. This is not like a draft where, like, from 1 to 32, people are going to say, yeah, these 32 guys, they're going there. But, like, from the talent, from the top 5 is always the most talented group. And then from there on out, everyone else is kind of the same. But for me personally, in this year's draft, it's more of like, the top 3 are the more talented groups. Obviously, Deion Jordan, I think, is very talented. Very underrated is a great term for Deion Jordan when it comes to this draft. Yes, we say don't look at combine numbers, but even at Oregon, this guy was very, very good under Oregon's defense. Probably one of the best Oregon defenders in a long time. You look at Sharif Floyd. Depends on the system he goes to, but he can be a monster. And then when you look at Luke Jokel,
you can go ahead and pencil him in for Oakland.
Oakland. And then afterwards, Luke Jokel, I think he's a great tackle. My problem is when you take a tackle at number 1, let's just look at the Miami Dolphins. You got Jake Long at number 1. It's like, oh yeah, we got a great tackle. Yeah, but look at where the Miami Dolphins are now after that, compared to where the Falcons are with Matt Ryan. It's just, to me, I feel like you can't overdraft offensive linemen. Offensive linemen, tackles definitely come in the top 10, but I don't think that, Jake Long was deserving of the number 1 pick, nor do I feel Luke Jokel is deserving of the number 1 overall pick. I just feel that, tackles should be drafted in the 6 to 10 range, while quarterbacks and receivers, guys who actually score the touchdowns, guys who make big impacts to your team, because offensive linemen, they get injured easily. We always hear of offensive linemen getting injured. And who knows, what if Luke Jokel gets injured? I mean, David DeCastro is a perfect example. The Steelers picked him at the right time. Number 22, David DeCastro, perfect opportunity to get a great guard like David DeCastro, but he gets injured. So who to say that Luke Jokel or Eric Fisher won't get injured? I mean, let's just be fair. It's just too early to be drafting offensive linemen for my taste.
Yeah, I think that, look, you got to get an offensive tackle. You got to get a left tackle. I mean, you talked about the skill positions. Those guys mean absolutely nothing if your offensive line can't give the quarterback time to get the football to your playmakers. You got to be able to protect your quarterback. And so I have no problem, no gripes with a team selecting a tackle at the top of the draft if he is worthy of that pick. And I think Jokel is going to come in, or Jokel is going to come in, and I think he's going to play well. I think he's going to fit in perfectly. And let's be honest, the Chiefs are dying to get out of this pick. If they could, they would. They are dying to get out of this pick. But no one wants to come to the top of the draft and give up what it's going to take to get that number 1 selection. And so the Chiefs are stuck, and they're going to have to make the selection. And I think it's going to be Jokel, and I think he's going to be a very solid selection for the Kansas City Chiefs. And in this league, you got to have a cornerstone on your offensive line. You got to have a really good left tackle. If you don't, you'll find yourself looking for a long time. Ask the Dallas Cowboys. And they're still looking for a left tackle right now. They're not sure if Tyron Smith is that guy. And they're really ready to move on from Doug Free. You've heard reports that they're talking to Eric Winston as we speak. And so you got to have stability on your line. And the easiest way to do that is to get it through the draft and get a tackle high in the draft. And if you got to take them number 1, so be it.
I just feel like, let's look at the tackles that were drafted so high. I mean, Joe Thomas, great addition to Cleveland, future Hall of Famer in my book. But it's just, where's Cleveland? They're not in the playoffs. Where's Miami? They lost their number 1 pick. They haven't kept their number 1 pick in 2008. 5 years from now, you don't have your number 1 pick from 2008. Consider it a failure to me, because that means you can't keep your draft picks, and that means you're not really building through the draft. The draft is pretty much kind of useless, in my personal opinion, if you're not getting good 10 to 15 years out of this guy. 5 years out, Jake Long getting only 1 playoff appearance is not saying this is a great draft pick. It's just saying you overdrafted for this guy.
I mean, you can say that about Jake Long, but we can say that about all the quarterbacks. Jamarcus Russell that went number 1. I mean,
exactly.
Drafting number 1 is a crapshoot. Drafting, period, is a crapshoot. You never know what you're going to get out of these guys when you draft them. All you can do is your homework and then hope that these guys come in, have the work ethic, and they actually play well when they get to the league. You just don't know what you're going to get out of that overall number 1 pick. You talked about Cleveland with Joe Thomas. Look, you can't fault the offensive line in Cleveland for the struggles of that team. If you want to point the finger in a direction and blame someone, look at the quarterback position. Their quarterback position has stunk for the last decade, strong. And so they're just starting to get a lot of pieces out there that can help them win. They're starting to get a lot of skill guys that can make a difference. Now they just need the signal caller to make it all come together. And so,
yeah, I'm just saying they could have gotten the signal caller when Joe Thomas instead of getting Joe Thomas. You could have gotten that guy earlier.
Well, let's look and see who was in that draft that Joe Thomas was selected in.
You cannot defend Jake Long after what you see with Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Long can't be argued, but Joe Thomas, I think, can be argued. And also, what about Russell Okung? I mean, this guy was drafted number 6 for Seattle, and he's been great for Seattle. He's really made
the thing is, I'm arguing top 5. I'm not arguing number 6. Number 6 is fine, and especially at the time, Seattle still had Matt Hasselbeck. They weren't looking for a quarterback. But when you're a team like Miami and Cleveland who don't have a quarterback, you should be looking for that first in a tackle.
Okay, so Joe Thomas was in that 2007 draft, and Jamarcus Russell and Brady Quinn were your best options at the quarterback position at that draft. I mean, what were the Browns supposed to do?
Well, the Browns ended up getting Brady Quinn.
Yeah, exactly my point, which was a disaster. So
who was later on in that draft?
what was the guy from Stanford? Trent Williams. He was in that draft. Terrible. I mean, there weren't other options to be had in that draft. You got to take the tackle. You got to make your team better right now, and you got to hope that somewhere along the line you'll get the quarterback to go with that tackle. I thought the Rams, they tried to do it the right way. They went out and got Jason Smith. He ended up stinking, and they thought that he was going to be the tackle first. Then they went and got Sam Bradford the next year. They thought they were doing it the right way. It just turned out that Jason Smith turned out to be a bust. He wasn't that good, and Sam Bradford paid for it. How many times did we see Sam Bradford getting up off the turf? I remember I used to always joke with my friends and say, doesn't it look like Sam Bradford has a permanent black eye? Because he's always getting banged up at the quarterback position. And I could remember, as a Redskins fan, we had Patrick Ramsey, and he wasn't that bad of a quarterback. But you know what happened to him? He got gun-shy because we had Steve Spurrier in that fun and gun offense. He didn't believe in protecting the quarterback. 5 wide, spreading teams out. Teams started blitzing us. Patrick Ramsey took a beating, and he was scared to hang in a pocket and take a shot and deliver the football. And I thought that was going to happen to Sam Bradford, but luckily enough for him, Jeff Fisher came in, turned that program around, and now they're getting him help. And so you got to take the tackle first. You got to have a guy that can protect your quarterback, or else your quarterback is going to get killed. You don't need to look any further than David Carr for that. See David Carr if you want an example of a guy that didn't have an offensive line in front of him and suffered because of it. And he went from number 1 overall selection to a career backup overnight. And that's what not having an offensive line can do for you.
That is true, but even then, it's just, would you want, because I look at that 2007 draft, and I see Adrian Peterson down there, it's just that, would you rather have AP or Joe Thomas?
If Adrian Peterson is on the Cleveland Browns, is he running for 2,000 yards? I mean, yeah, I'm just saying.
Who did the Vikings have offensive line?
They just drafted a left tackle, Matt Khalil.
Oh, yeah.
Matt Khalil wasn't really that important, though. He wasn't.
Yes, he was. Matt Khalil was huge for that 2,000-yard season. I mean, without Matt Khalil.
I would argue Jerome Felton was more huge than Matt Khalil.
Jerome Felton was important. They signed him to a deal to show their
important because he was leading the block.
I can't say that because you got to
also see how the Vikings replaced Steve Hutchinson in that offensive line. That also helped them out tremendously.
All honesty.
But Matt Khalil was huge. He was great as a rookie. Great. I mean, you can't ask for better. From Matt Khalil.
I would say Jerome Felton was more of an impact than Matt Khalil or Adrian Peterson. Fullbacks are huge impacts, and James, you know this. We have one of the best fullbacks. Me being a Chargers fan, you being a Titans fan, we have one of the best fullbacks. Lead both of our running backs to career seasons, so you know what's up.
Yeah, but we also had a great left tackle in Michael Ruse, which is a great.
Yeah, like Marcus McNeil was a great left tackle.
This year, yes, he was very good.
Like Marcus McNeil.
I think you said Matt Khalil. I thought you said Matt.
Marcus, I said that we've had a great fullback. Both of our running backs, LaDainian Tomlinson and Eddie George and Chris Johnson, to great, seasons. We've had
you gotta have an offensive line though. I mean, your fullback is important, and he's a thumper, and he's got to get in there, and he's got to open up that hole. But if there's penetration in the back, then there's nothing your fullback can do about it. And the way to not have that penetration is having a strong tackle.
Offensive lineman should be drafted like top 5. That's just too high for them. Go for a running back. Go for a quarterback. I thought the Browns last year when they got Trent Richardson.
And also the thing was, like, in that 2007 draft, I know you said, you could draft Adrian Peterson, but looking back, we're like, coulda, woulda, shoulda. At that time, they had Jamal Lewis. So they were going to draft a running back at that time.
Right.
Yeah, but look at the Panthers, what they did. They had D'Angelo Williams, but still drafted Jonathan Stewart.
But that hasn't. I mean, that's fine, but they're still splitting carries right down the middle.
I mean, it's just that you should draft more to help your offense and weapon than draft an offensive lineman. Offensive linemen are important, but there's always guys out there who are working hard. There's always offensive linemen out there that could surprise you and do really, really well.
Another thing, I right now, a team, all these teams in the playoffs, the thing that you notice with them, all of them have very good offensive line. What is the adjustment the Baltimore Ravens made in their team? It wasn't with the defense. It was that offensive line. They moved people around in that offensive line. They moved Michael Orr, and that was a great move. I mean, John Harbaugh, I respect him for that move he made because that is a huge reason why they were there. You look at the best offensive tackles in the NFL. I look at Joe Staley. Who does he play for? San Francisco 49ers. Big reason why they were there. I said Russell Okung earlier. Offensive tackles, especially that left tackle, is a big reason why teams were so successful. Ryan Clady out of Denver Broncos, he is a big reason for that team being so successful, especially for Peyton Manning, who needs that.
The only team that didn't have a really quality left tackle was the Green Bay Packers. Other than that, you'd be hard-pressed to find a team that didn't have a really good left tackle. That was
running for help, trying to get free because he can't have any protection. He doesn't have any protection at all.
Yeah, but those guys that you named, those were guys drafted in what picks, 12, 20. They were drafted not over high, though, not overvalued drafted. They weren't drafted a 5.
But in those drafts where they were drafted, I guarantee you there were quarterbacks, there were other guys that were sought after and looked at as being, can't-miss prospects.
Maybe it's because I played offensive line, and I know that there's a difference between zone blockings on a lot of teams. And when you look at teams, you got to find out guys that can fit your system when it comes down to the zone blockings or to the man blockings or to the read blocks that you want to do. And that's why I feel when you go for offensive linemen too high, I mean, the Chiefs already have Brendan Albert, and yes, Brendan Albert's not the best left tackle, and he doesn't want to show up to workouts or play guard. But maybe there's a reason why. Maybe Joko can play right tackle. I just feel that tackles, yes, they are important in the NFL, but to me, top 5 picks are just so much worth for a tackle. It's just too much to waste on a tackle or a guard because they get more injured than quarterbacks. They get more injured than running backs. They are guys, we've seen tackles, highly touted, all of a sudden, one concussion, their career's over, pretty much, because they're afraid to hit again. They're afraid to block again.
With the guard, it's a reason why a guard hasn't won in the top 10 in 25 years, only once. Because guards aren't valued as high as tackles. You got to have a tackle. You got to have tackles. I feel like, for me, the 3 most important positions on your offensive line are your 2 tackles and your center. And I feel like if you get solid guards, great. One team in particular places higher value on their guards than anyone else in the league. That's the New Orleans Saints. They feel like if Drew Brees has the ability to step up in the pocket and the tackles get beat, as long as he can step up in the pocket and have the room to maneuver within the pocket and have a clean pocket to throw from in terms of stepping up, they feel good. And that's why they invested so much money in their guard position, signing a guy like Jari Evans. They wanted to have Carl Nicks back. He wanted too much money. They went and got Ben Grubbs instead. They keep their guards, making sure that Drew Brees has a firm pocket in front of him from which to work. Now, tackles, they let tackles walk away. They just let Jamon Bushrod leave. And so some teams don't place as much importance on the tackle position, but you won't find many in the league that don't believe that their left tackle especially is the guy that has to be solid. There's only 3, maybe 4 positions in the league that are worthy of a top pick in the draft. It's quarterback, left tackle, a outside linebacker that's a rush linebacker, and maybe a cornerback. And corners normally don't go number 1, but they're the guys that get paid a lot of money. You'll see a receiver sneak in there every now and again, but it's rare that a receiver goes number one, because we look at Calvin Johnson. You say, how did this guy not go number one? Jamarcus Russell went number one in that draft. So, I mean, left tackles are important. They're, after the quarterback, they're the next highest paid position probably in the National Football League. And there's a reason for that, because they're that important to a team's success, especially offensively. You don't have a left tackle, your offense is really going to be in some serious trouble, because there are too many dominant pass rushers in this league for you to have a solid but not great left tackle on your football team. You will get taken advantage of if your left tackle isn't a guy that can be a rock, a anchor on your offensive line.
I'll just say this. We'll see in 4 years or 5 years where Luke Jokel's at. And if he's off the Chiefs and the Chiefs are not in the playoffs at least 2 to 3 times in the next 5 years, we'll see if this draft pick worked out. Because to me personally, a draft pick changes teams. Not really. I just feel the Chiefs don't need the left tackle. They could have gone with a younger quarterback. I just feel the Chiefs are just dumb for going with Alex Smith, repeating history of failure teams and not being men and saying, hey, let's go for a quarterback. Let's just change our complexion. I mean, the AFC West is not getting younger. The AFC West is one of the oldest divisions. I mean, Phillip Rivers' arm is falling off. Peyton Manning's neck is going to, not going to hold up for like 2 or 3 more years like his contract says it is going to be, And then you look at the Raiders. The Raiders are just a mess. They don't know who their quarterback's going to be. I mean, we don't even know if Matt Flynn, even though I do like him, is going to be the guy. So for me personally, I say you go with the quarterback in the first pick. I don't care if he doesn't pan out. At least you went with him. At least you tried him out. It's better than trying out a left tackle that doesn't really change too much of putting up points on the board.
Final thing on this, okay, I understand the whole quarterback thing, but because this year's quarterback class is so weak to me, and that's why they brought in Alex Smith. Alex Smith was brought in to do that, exactly that. That's why they brought him in. They took a chance on him. They traded whatever draft pick it was to get him, to bring him in, because they believe, and I believe as well, that he is better than whatever they're going to get in this quarterback class, because I don't like this quarterback class. They do not like this quarterback class. I would not be surprised if this quarterback class ends up like 2007, where the best quarterback that came out of that was Kevin Kolb. Okay? They don't want to go into that situation again. And look why Alex Smith was able to win games with that. You may not think he's a great quarterback, but why? Joe Staley was on that left side watching his blind side.
And that
was the big reason.
Joe Staley was not good for the first 4 years. Let's not forget that. Joe Staley wasn't good for his first times in San Francisco. He became better as years went on, but the truth is they had a quarterback. Whether you liked him or not, Alex Smith was the quarterback. They had a running back. Frank Gore was the running back. They already had, their quarterback and their running back, so they said, hey, let's get Joe Staley. And Joe Staley wasn't even that good. The 49ers wasted so many years drafting offensive linemen that didn't become good until their 4th or 5th years. And that's the thing. Unless the Chiefs are saying, hey, Alex Smith is our guy for the next 5 years, and we're going to draft offensive linemen to protect his ass for the next 5 years, I will be fine with this pick. But they go out and next year they say, oh, we need a compliment to Tamba Ali for whatever reason. They draft an outside linebacker next year, or they get Jadeveon Clowney next year. I don't think it's that great of a pick. I just think it's bad drafting. You have to think of the future, and I don't think Luke Jokel is going to be with the Chiefs for the next 4 years. Hell, if I was Luke Jokel after my 4-year rookie contract, or 5 years, however long they signed him, I would be saying, see ya, bye. I'm going to a championship team that needs me.
You think the Chiefs are going to be taking that high? I don't think the Chiefs are going to be a bad team. But that's another conversation for another day.
We have to wrap this up. Heated debate here on Before the Snap. Make sure to check out our Twitter at BeforeTheSnap. Make sure to like us on Facebook, facebook.com/BeforeTheSnap. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You're already here, so just click subscribe down there in the description box. And mainly of all, check out BeforeTheSnap.com. Hopefully we have some more heated discussions in the future about the draft, about all kinds of crap. If you want to see more of that, keep tuning in. For all of us here Before the Snap, we bid you adieu. See y'all later.